Here we go with a bonus round of the 70s versus the 90s, and it's another double O showdown with Guy Hamilton's The Man with the Golden Gun versus Roger Spottiswoode's Tomorrow Never Dies. And this one I'm going to get real nitpicky on because, it's a lot harder to pick than it was for the last one, which, Live and Let Die versus GoldenEye. One was clearly like, a very good movie. The other one was clearly a very great movie. These are kind of like down the middle because where one's good, the other one's kind of lacking, and where one lacks, the other one kind of picks up on. So, just right off, these are both the second outings for both Roger Moore and Pierce Brosnan as James Bond. And Guy Hamilton returns as the director as the follow-up to Live and Let Die. And The Man with the Golden Gun, the plot is probably one of the more unique plots in a James Bond film, where you have like the greatest hitman of all time, and he gets paid $1 million a shot, uses a golden gun, all this crazy shit. And, he's wanting to kill James Bond because that's the only person that he feels is his match. And so we go to that as opposed to the second outing for Pierce Brosnan in Tomorrow Never Dies, which has the director Roger Spottiswoode, who only did this James Bond film. He also directed other films like Air America and The Best of Times. And he also started out as a film editor. He edited a lot of Peckinpah's films, like Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. But as directors, you see Guy Hamilton kind of gets it more so than almost any other director of Bond films, because he kind of knows the standard, because he set the gold standard with Goldfinger, no pun intended. And honestly, having, dealt with Roger Moore's Bond and Live and Let Die, they both kind of have the rhythm now. And Roger Moore, still a little campy, but he's not as campy. He kind of gets a little grittier because the story is more of a detective story, and like he's the greatest spy in the world. And Scaramanga, played by Christopher Lee, who's an exceptional villain, one of the best Bond villains, definitely top 5 Bond villains, because, there's very few times where you actually see Bond have a match when it comes to the villain. They're usually like these flamboyant, fucking narcissistic, blowhards that want to just tell you everything that happens. Scaramanga, he may be trying to sell you on something, but his main objective is to kill you. It's not, all that whole, let's leave you to sharks and crocodiles and shit like that, but as a plot, because granted, nobody really goes to a James Bond film for plots, but that's where Tomorrow Never Dies kind of falters, because it's got one of the dumbest villains where, like, Scaramanga, or Christopher Lee playing Scaramanga, is one of the best fucking villains. Because, I mean, Christopher Lee, was born to play villains. I mean, he's Dracula, for fuck's sake, And honestly, The Man with the Golden Gun kind of feels like a Hammer horror Dracula film, where you got, James Bond is like Van Helsing to Scaramanga's Dracula. And, honestly, a lot more vibrant and fun than some of those Hammer horror films, too. But Tomorrow Never Dies, we have Jonathan Pryce as the villain, and he's like a media mogul that, one of the biggest, like, moguls of the 24-hour news cycle. He wants to be controlling everything, put a monopoly on the news, so to speak. So this is his whole thing. He's trying to orchestrate a world crisis so he can be the first one to report on it and then have exclusive rights to all this shit. So very lame fucking plot, and at the same time, nobody would give a fuck about the plot if it was more fun. Case in point with something like GoldenEye, because you're not too hung up on the plot because the movie itself is so balls to the wall fucking action that you don't really care. And that's the same thing with The Man with the Golden Gun, because the plot's very basic. There's nothing that you have to fucking like even be that invested in. There's like kind of a side MacGuffin thing that helps fuel some fucking ray, the solar ray type thing. That's all like whatever, but they end up wrapping that shit up quickly too. So right here, we'll just go down with the tally. The Man with the Golden Gun has the better villain, but the fucked up thing is that Pierce Brosnan still may be a better Bond. The thing about Pierce Brosnan is they peaked so high with GoldenEye that everything else just kind of paled in comparison. They didn't give him a strong enough script. They didn't really give him a strong enough villain to play off of, where he's got to go up against like Sean Bean, who is like his intellectual equal. They were both like, brothers and spies or whatever the fuck, but here it's just some fucking media mogul whose wife this guy used to fuck. It's just basic ass shit, and weird fact though, and I don't know, it's been a while since I've watched all these fucking movies, so I'm just going back and watching them. But so far in both Live and Let Die and The Man with the Golden Gun, we never see Roger Moore as James Bond order a vodka martini, shaken, not stirred. We see it both times in GoldenEye and Tomorrow Never Dies. So that's just a weird fucking thing, because they said the standard had motherfuckers buying vodka martinis like that was cool or some shit, you know. And then they got the better song in The Man with the Golden Gun, you know, Lulu doing the theme song. The Sheryl Crow song for Tomorrow Never Dies, you know, enough to put you to sleep and shit, you know. He's got a better female like sidekick in Tomorrow Never Dies, though. Michelle Yeoh is very badass. When it's Michelle Yeoh and Pierce Brosnan, it's a great fucking movie. The action's vibe, they jump off that ledge, you know, that's a great stunt. But nothing can top the fucking stunt of in Man with the Golden Gun when they do that fucking spin with the car and the sound effect. I mean, that shit's fucking just phenomenal. I mean, it's no fucking boat chase in Live and Let Die, but you know, they didn't really peak with Live and Let Die. They just kept getting better. You know, they were all kind of getting more comfortable as, you know, having Roger Moore as Bond, because really it was just, you know, to be all practical, there's no way Connery was going to keep doing it. And in a way, they always knock Roger Moore's age, being James Bond, as being too old. But in a way, it's kind of a continuation of Connery, because they were kind of the same age when the baton got passed to Roger Moore. So, you know, for me, it kind of works, especially in the early 70s. It isn't really until Moonraker, when it's getting closer to the 80s, that it's like, well, you know, maybe this dude needs to quit. But he did it well into the 80s. But and the female sidekick in The Man with the Golden Gun, Goodnight, she's just, you know, the basic dumb blonde, can't, you know, do shit, you know. It's so that's got to go to Tomorrow Never Dies. Better opening, though. The Man with the Golden Gun has a way better opening, because it's like, it's very unique, and it sets up that villain. Because usually the opening of a James Bond movie is supposed to set up the villain, and in a way Tomorrow Never Dies kind of does this, but the fucking tension is so basic, you know, all the missiles chasing you and all this fucking shit. So, I mean, better villain kill in The Man with the Golden Gun. He totally outsmarts him, but the better henchman kill has to go to fucking Tomorrow Never Dies, because they don't actually kill, I forget the gentleman that plays the midget fucking sidekick, but that's, you know, Tattoo from Fantasy Island and shit. It was, you know, it's basically like Murder Island, I guess you could call it. But you know, the fucking henchman in Tomorrow Never Dies, like for Vanilla Ice Dolph Lundgren, you know, that the way they killed that dude was pretty great. You know, Judi Dench's M, I think, might be better than Bernard Lee in the Roger Moore films. Bernard Lee, of course, was a lot better when he was in the fucking Sean Connery ones, and you see him in the Roger Moore ones, he's like a sad, angry old man and shit. But you know, but better plot, better money penny, and a better director for Man with a Golden Gun, because like I said, Guy Hamilton kind of is the, you know, no pun intended, the guy you want to get to direct a James Bond movie, you know, because it's going to be fun. He's going to understand the world that he's in. Tomorrow Never Dies kind of takes itself way too seriously, you know, and honestly, you know, like, you know, Goodnight and Bond obviously had something going on later, so the fact that they end up, you know, fucking at the end, you know, that you can kind of understand that. But Michelle Yeoh and at the end of Tomorrow Never Dies, you know, that would have been way cooler if they didn't fuck at the end, because, you know, the mutual respect would have been a lot more like intriguing than just like, oh well, fuck, you know, he's able to get this hard shell, you know, crack that hard shell too. So, you know, I gotta give it to The Man with the Golden Gun. I literally just sat down, tallied all this shit, and whoever had more of the best shit, that's who was gonna get the round. Because overall, you know, because like they're neither one of them are perfect movies, but I would say The Man with the Golden Gun works better as a Bond film and as a regular movie, because Tomorrow Never Dies is just, you know, basic action with a few intriguing stunts. You know, I mean, there were better gadgets in it. You know, the fucking remote control car and shit. You know, that was kind of cool, but you know, it was just as compared to GoldenEye, it seems like in a way the Roger Moore films got better over time, and then before they, you know, Moonraker was kind of the pinnacle where it just went to that descent of camp and just, you know, this old man bumble assing around, and whereas Pierce Brosnan's films just kept getting more mid as they went along. So if anybody's keeping score, this is a bonus round, but it still counts in the score. So now that gives it 10-8, 70s. 70s won this round. They broke the streak for the 90s, or they had their little 2 wins in a row, because I was so eager to see too if the 90s could tie it up with this, you know, because it's really bugging me to see if Pierce Brosnan is the better Bond than Moore. I still say that he is. Roger Moore just got better movies and he had better people to work with, you know, other than like nobody. I will say this is the first time in a James Bond movie you really saw like a female match for Bond, maybe with the exception of License to Kill. But, you know, Michelle Yeoh, I don't think they ever had a more badass female counterpart to Bond in one of these films. So, but I still got to give it to Man with the Golden Gun, because when you've got Christopher Lee as a villain, you really can't go wrong. And so, you know, I got a few more of these Bonds. I may do them further down the line. Who knows? I still got a bunch of other stuff. And these bonus rounds will pop up here and there, you know, because I got so many of these matchups that, you know, I can't wait. You know, who the hell wants to wait 3 years? And I know YouTube's hungry for content. You know, I know you motherfuckers need somebody else to be pissed off at. Feel free to fucking eviscerate me in the comments. I don't care. I'm just having fun. This is my fucking rough draft to a doctoral thesis. And if any motherfuckers want to use this in film classes, you know, we'll talk money. I don't give a fuck. You know, whatever the hell. You know, just, you know, do it right. Teach it right. Because there's a lot of important shit. But unless there's another bonus round, the next round for next Saturday is going to be Straw Dogs versus Cape Fear. So, you know, Sam Peckinpah versus Martin Scorsese. If you think, you know, James Bond was hard, wait till I get to that shit.